family's sheep goes missing for 7 years before they uncover the weird truth. The Greys are a tight-knit family from Australia who make their living raising animals and growing crops in Dunolly Farm, the picturesque spot they all call home. To many, life in the midst of such beautiful natural landscapes and abundant wildlife sounds like a dream. However, farm life is not without its trials and tribulations. In 2013, the Greys were sent into a terrifying frenzy after their beloved sheep, Prickles, went missing. It wouldn't be until nearly a decade later that they would finally uncover the dark reality behind the situation. And it wasn't what anyone could have expected. The sordid story of what became of Prickles begins back in 2013, when a horrific event rocked the entire continent of Australia, causing devastation and displacement for millions of residents, including the Greys. The disaster in question was the Tasmanian bushfires. Australia was used to massive blazes, so at first the situation didn't seem too awry. The government hastily put out a media campaign to increase the public's preparedness. Despite these efforts, the fires would turn out to be nothing less than cataclysmic. No one could have anticipated that this fire season would last more than 6 months and completely destroy 49,000 acres of land, sparing neither homes nor native forest. Amidst all this chaos, the Greys were hit on an extremely personal level. It would take longer than they ever knew at the time to recover from the tragedy unfolding around them. The bushfires quickly spread to their own family farm, burning over 30 miles of fencing and leaving the household scarred in more ways than one. Although it hurt financially, fences could be rebuilt. Their biggest loss would be the one that couldn't ever be replaced. On the day that the burning flames finally descended on the Dunolly farm, one individual in particular let gut instincts take over completely and ran for her life. This was Prickles the sheep. The bewildered animal fled the farm, running as fast as her legs would carry her. By the time she looked back, she was finally out of harm's way. Or so she thought. Soon Prickles would realize the sad reality. After the fires had subsided, she tried to make her way back to the farm that had always been her home. However, she ran into a heartbreaking problem. New fencing had been put up, and she couldn't reunite with her fellow animals and caretakers. The Greys had to live with the fact that their precious animal was gone forever. 7 years later, celebrating the 6th birthday of son Barkley, the family still hadn't forgotten about Prickles. On that day of the party, they decided to have a barbecue in the backyard. Suddenly, out of the corner of her eye, Mother Alice Grey spotted something that didn't sit well with her. It was a strange shape moving in the distance. Soon, the truth would set in. It was Prickles! They realized in shock. Immediately, Alice's husband jumped into action, chasing the lost sheep through the outback. He knew if they let her escape again, it would be the last time they saw her. We saw this big, white, fluffy thing on the other side of the dam. My husband disappeared and gave me a call, puffing, saying he'd chased her and leapt on her and was holding her down, and we all had to go and help, Alice recalled. The family all came together in a frenzied race to retrieve their long-lost pet. Finally, after an intense struggle, the Greys managed to load Prickles into the back of the van. Unfortunately, this wouldn't be the end of their troubles. The Greys had finally tracked down their precious sheep, but they still had to reckon with the grave consequences that had resulted from her extended time in isolation. These would prove to be pretty severe. Most obvious were the physical impacts. Prickles had missed a total of 7 shearings and was seriously unkempt. If it weren't for one special trait of hers, there's no way she would have survived the ordeal. Prickles was a species of sheep known as the bare-faced merino, and these animals don't grow wool on their faces. This was Prickles' saving grace out in the wild. The psychological impacts of those 7 years, however, were still wreaking havoc. The sheep had been wandering alone in the bush for nearly a decade, and when she escaped, she'd only been a baby. It would take a lot of work for her to adjust to being around other sheep, turkeys, and ducks again. Thankfully, she had a loving home to return to. She will spend the rest of her life in peaceful retirement, according to Alice. She will have a very nice time after her fleece comes off," the doting farmer remarked. And the Greys even came up with a way to turn Prickle's disappearance into something positive. Alice began an online competition to guess the weight of her fleece, and the proceeds are going to a very special cause. She will be donating all the money from the competition to the UN in support of refugees who are unable to isolate during the coronavirus pandemic. The money will go to people who aren't as fortunate as Prickles, Alice confirmed.